Hello, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you focused learners out there joining us today. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here because today's explainer is going to be a truly fascinating deep dive journey. We are going to take a massive magnifying glass to a very specific, incredibly mundane event that somehow, almost magically, organically transformed into an absolute internet-breaking phenomenon. I want you to just stop and think for a second about the reality of modern fame. I mean, we live in an era where celebrities are essentially protected by this impenetrable, ironclad fortress of PR machinery. They are heavily media trained, they are perfectly styled, and they are completely 100% guarded. Behind literally every single public appearance is this whole army. A team of publicists, crisis managers, image consultants. Every interview you watch is rehearsed, every red carpet smile is meticulously calibrated for the flashing cameras, and literally nothing is left to chance. But what happens when that massive, incredibly expensive script is just completely thrown out the window? What happens when a global superstar, arguably the absolute biggest star in the entire world, just sits on a couch in her house, turns on a cheap webcam, and simply starts talking to her fans? Well, today we are decoding the anatomy of a viral moment. We're going to break down exactly how a quiet, cozy little live stream set the absolutely perfect stage for an unscripted micro-expression that sent social media into total, unadulterated chaos. I am incredibly enthusiastic to guide you through this whole shebang because by analyzing the underlying structure of this event, we're going to uncover some seriously powerful truths about authenticity, the modern media landscape, and genuine human connection. So let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. We really have to ask ourselves a very simple yet surprisingly profound question right off the bat. Can a single, fleeting, entirely unscripted smile genuinely break the internet? I mean, really think about that. A simple shift of facial muscles. The short answer, as we are absolutely going to see, is a massive, emphatic yes. But to truly understand the sheer magnitude of this narrative climax, and I'm talking about a totally unspoken, completely unscripted reaction to a very specific question about Travis Kelce, we cannot just jump straight to the viral clip. Honestly, that would be totally skipping the foundational context that made the moment so incredibly powerful to begin with. To appreciate the explosion, you've got to first deeply understand the atmosphere in the room long before the match was ever lit. So we need to rewind. We need to establish the incredibly intimate, comfortable, and completely unguarded baseline of this particular live stream. Just imagine an audience of literally millions tuning in, right? They're probably expecting just a quick, polished, professional update, but instead, they're invited into a space that feels exactly like a quiet Friday night conversation with a friend, because it is precisely the casual, highly relaxed, deeply personal nature of the first half of this broadcast that made those final viral moments so undeniably real and entirely impossible to fake. When you or I think of Taylor Swift, our minds instantly jump to a very, very specific set of images, don't they? We envision those massive, sold-out stadium tours. We picture the glittering, custom-designed costumes, the soaring vocals, the pyrotechnics, and a highly produced, larger-than-life global stage presence. But the setting of this live stream, it could not be more radically different from that image if it tried. She is literally just sitting in her house, she is wearing a basic dark outfit, and her hair is casually tied back, almost as if she literally just finished running a bunch of errands. The lighting is remarkably soft, the curtains are totally drawn closed behind her, and there's just a simple, everyday framed painting hanging on the wall. It honestly feels like it could be anyone's living room. But if you pay close attention to the background, you'll notice she casually refers to this quiet little space as the award room. Just behind her, nestled into this completely normal-looking domestic setting, rests a massive triple platinum plaque, sitting quietly right alongside prestigious CMA and CMT awards. It's a striking, almost jarring visual juxtaposition. You have this massive, industry-conquering level of success, housed directly within a raw, intimate, completely unpretentious setting. This cozy setup is absolutely vital to the psychology of the entire event because it completely lowers the viewer's guard, and much more importantly, it visually signals to every single person watching that her guard is totally down too. As the stream really gets underway, the chat box on the side of the screen is moving incredibly fast, and she is just effortlessly jumping between vastly different topics, completely unbothered by the chaotic, blurry pace of it all. It is a rapid-fire, entirely natural flow of conversation. 1 second, the tone is incredibly heavy, very sincere. She literally pauses everything she's doing to give a deeply heartfelt, emotional shout-out to a fan whose husband is in the Marine Corps and deployed in Iraq. She takes the time to earnestly, genuinely thank him and his family for their service and their immense sacrifice. Then, in almost the very next breath, she brings the audience right back to the business of being a global megastar, casually dropping massive updates. She effortlessly mentions she's heading over to the UK, Australia, and Japan at the beginning of the year. Boom, just like that.
And then she seamlessly shifts gears yet again to announce her big May headlining tour. But what is so genuinely charming about this part is exactly how she frames this massive commercial undertaking. She isn't talking about ticket sales or revenue projections or logistics. She's mostly just excited because Kelce Pickler is coming on the road with her. She enthusiastically tells the chat they are planning to have sleepovers and paint their nails on the tour bus every single night. It's this perfect, unfiltered blend of global megastar business and deeply relatable down-to-earth friendship.
And this brilliantly illustrates the endearing humility she somehow managed to maintain, even as her fame was absolutely skyrocketing into the stratosphere. During the stream, fans naturally asked her about her recent, highly publicized appearance on The Ellen Show. Now look, we all know Ellen pulled out all the stops for her guests back then. She flew in Taylor's best friend, whom she hadn't seen in forever, and she even brought out Justin Timberlake to surprise her. It was a massive, high-production television moment, a real spectacle. But the detail Taylor described to her fans as the craziest thing on the planet wasn't the flashing cameras or the pop stars jumping out at her. No way. It was her quiet, behind-the-scenes interaction with actor Patrick Dempsey. According to her, Dempsey walked right into her dressing room just to ask her to sign a CD. She was so completely overwhelmed by his presence she actually started crying, jokingly calling the whole moment very embarrassing for her. But the absolutely crucial detail she shares here is how he behaved. Patrick didn't act like a massive, untouchable celebrity expecting everyone to bow down to him. Not at all. He walked right up to a mom and introduced himself by simply saying, "Hi, I'm Patrick." She notes how incredibly cool and sweet it was that he didn't just assume everyone knew exactly who he was, even though, let's be real, absolutely everyone in the room did. It is a beautiful, deeply grounding anecdote about remaining a real, actual person inside a totally surreal, crazy industry.
Speaking of staying grounded, she elaborated on that friendship with Kelce Pickler that she had so excitedly mentioned a bit earlier. The timeline of their bond is fascinatingly simple and completely stripped of any of that typical Hollywood pretension. It all started back when they were both out on the Brad Paisley tour. Taylor recalls seeing Kelce sitting on the side of the stage on one of those massive monitor speakers, just quietly watching Brad perform his set. Now, Taylor didn't overthink it. She didn't have her PR people call Kelce's management people to set up a meeting. She just walked right up, sat down directly next to her on the speaker, and introduced herself. They clicked instantly. Bam, fast friends. But what is truly insightful here is exploring exactly why Taylor values her so much. She describes Kelce as literally the funniest person on the planet, but more importantly, she relies on her as someone who forces her to keep it real. Fame creates a seriously dangerous echo chamber. You know what I mean? You are constantly surrounded by people whose sole job, their entire livelihood, is to agree with you and tell you how incredibly great you are. But Kelce is remarkably blunt. Taylor notes that Kelce will look right at her and firmly say, "You don't need to be doing that. You need to be doing that." Having people in your inner circle who are brave enough to tell you the unvarnished, totally honest truth, rather than just what you want to hear, is an absolutely vital survival tool in the entertainment business.
This stream then takes a pivot into her creative process, offering us this wonderful, completely unfiltered look right under the hood of her songwriting mechanics. She outlines a very specific, hard-learned life lesson that we can basically call the midnight songwriting rule. Now, we've all had that moment, right? You're drifting off to sleep, you're so comfortable, and suddenly your brain just sparks. Step 1, a random lyric phrase will suddenly pop into her head out of absolutely nowhere. Step 2, if it happens in the middle of the night, there's a massive, almost gravitational temptation to just think, "Oh wow, that's brilliant. I'll definitely remember that tomorrow morning. I don't need to get out of bed. I don't need to turn on the cold light to record it. I can just go back to sleep." Then comes step 3, the inevitable, soul-crushing tragedy. Waking up the next day to find that brilliant idea completely, irreversibly wiped from your memory. It's just gone. Because of suffering this artistic loss way too many times, she instituted step 4, the absolute non-negotiable rule to immediately record everything. She literally forces herself to stop whatever she is doing, even if she is dead asleep, to get it down on tape. If you don't record inspiration the exact microsecond it strikes, you risk losing it forever. It's a fantastic, deeply practical lesson in capturing those super fleeting moments of raw creativity before they vanish. When fans in the live chat inevitably asked what her favorite song on the new album was, her answer was incredibly dynamic and super insightful. She readily admitted that her absolute favorite song changes literally every single day. It shifts depending on exactly what she is personally going through in her own life at that specific exact moment. It also shifts based heavily on fan feedback, which is super cool. If a fan tells her a specific song is their absolute favorite and takes the time to explain exactly why it resonates with them, she'll often go back and listen to that track with entirely fresh ears. However, at the precise moment of this live stream, she singled out the track White Horse, and she loved it for a very, very specific lyrical reason. She told the chat she was incredibly proud of the lyric about going from a small town to Hollywood. It is so incredibly telling that, even amidst all her massive, record-breaking success, she remains so deeply connected to that foundational narrative of small-town ambition. It serves as a deliberate anchor for her, right? It keeps her tied to her roots, even as she navigates the absolute dizzying heights of global fame. That reflection on her youth and her small-town origins naturally, organically led right into a discussion about her song 15. She shared with everyone that she wrote this track specifically about her 9th grade year, a time in her life that was just packed with monumental, deeply formative firsts. It was the year of her first ever boyfriend, and crucially, it was the exact year she met her lifelong best friend, Abigail, whom she is literally still best friends with to this day. But the profound psychological realization she takes away from this specific era is absolutely striking. She explained to the fans that when you are 15 years old, you spend a massive, almost exhausting amount of your energy just trying to fit in, trying to be cool, and essentially trying to be somebody else entirely. It's a completely universal struggle. We've all been there. But her deep, overarching takeaway was that through the painful, super exhausting process of trying to be someone else, you ultimately learn exactly who you are. And honestly, just as importantly, you learn exactly who you are not. It is a remarkably mature, incredibly reflective retrospective on the universal, awkward growing pains of high school. To keep the energy high and the stream feeling exactly like a casual hangout with a close friend, she happily answered rapid-fire, quirky questions from that blurring chat box. The pacing here is just fantastic. It's so spontaneous. When someone asked what she sings in the shower, she didn't miss a single beat, instantly revealing her go-to shower anthems are Carly Simon's legendary classic You're So Vain and Katy Perry's highly energetic hit Hot and Cold. But she also loved to engage in a bit of mystery, dropping little interactive breadcrumbs for her most dedicated followers. When someone furiously typed, "Who is Steven?" she just coyly smiled and reminded the audience that there are secret messages and little capitalized clues hidden right inside the lyrics of her physical CD album booklet that would help them figure it out for themselves. It is this constant, super engaging interplay, mixed with quick, highly relatable asides like suddenly gasping and remembering she absolutely had to tune in to watch Grey's Anatomy that night, that made her fans feel so intensely, personally connected to her. It's brilliant community building without even trying to be. And of course, no cozy, at-home stream is truly complete with what she jokingly called animal show-off time. She eagerly scooped up and introduced her pets to the webcam, providing a hilarious, completely unscripted contrast between the two animals. First up, there's Bug, her dog. Bug is a bit lopsided because his back legs are significantly longer than his front legs, giving him a very distinct, super goofy walk. The origin story is amazing. When she was just 15, walking around a mall in LA, some guy walked up holding this tiny puppy and just asked if they wanted to buy it. She intensely begged her mom, and Bug became literally one of the very first things she ever bought with her early hard-earned songwriting money. On the exact opposite side of the personality spectrum is Indy, her cat. While Bug is all eager, goofy puppy energy, Taylor described Indy as having serious, undeniable attitude. While sometimes clingy and happy, Indy was currently just incredibly cranky, meowing nonstop in the background of the broadcast. But she lovingly noted that Indy is the one she actually talks to when she's lonely, bored, or happy. Naturally, right as she was passionately explaining this dynamic, the lopsided dog decided to just go after the cranky cat on camera, adding a perfect, hilarious layer of unscripted domestic chaos to the stream. You literally can't script that kind of perfection. So, amidst all this fast-paced chat about music, massive stadium tours, and chaotic pets fighting in the background, a very direct, very blunt question flew by in the chat. Do you have a boyfriend? Her response was clear, it was immediate, and it was wonderfully casual. She simply said no. But she didn't just leave it at a single syllable and move on. She actively established her current state of mind for the audience. She noted that she was perfectly happy, incredibly busy with massive industry events like the CMAs the night prior, and that she was surrounded by a truly awesome, highly supportive group of friends. It's a small moment in the grand scheme of this long broadcast, but it sets an absolutely vital psychological baseline for the viral moment that happens later on. She wasn't projecting loneliness to her fans, nor was she desperately seeking a relationship. Not at all. She was projecting complete, authentic contentment with her single, deeply fulfilled, and incredibly busy life. The stark contrast of this firm contentment makes what follows so much more impactful. That exact same sense of fulfillment extended right into her reflections on her family traditions. As she continued to field these rapid-fire lifestyle questions, she was asked about her favorite holidays. It's always deeply fascinating, isn't it, to see how highly public, immensely famous figures relate to private, normal, family-oriented traditions. She confirmed that Christmas definitely takes the absolute top spot for her. It is the undisputed favorite holiday. However, She made sure to give very special, very heartfelt honorable mention to Thanksgiving. Her reasoning wasn't about the incredible food or the rare time off from touring. It was entirely about the people sitting around the table. She explained that her family is incredibly loud when they finally all get together in one room. More specifically, she pointed out that all the women in her family share a distinct, signature, booming laugh that just echoes through the house. It's a very sweet, deeply humanizing detail to share. It paints a vivid, sensory picture of her chaotic, joyful family gatherings, which stands in incredibly stark contrast to the highly manicured, perfectly quiet VIP industry events she usually has to attend.
So the crucial point is, how exactly does a teenager managing a skyrocketing global music career view the traditional paths she had to permanently leave behind? She spoke surprisingly candidly about college, the path not taken. She revealed that because both of her parents went to college and subsequently went into business, she spent her entire young life assuming she would just do exactly the same thing. It was the plan. But she outlined a highly mature, incredibly perceptive view on the true value of higher education. She doesn't just see it as a place to get a piece of paper to hang on a wall, right? She views college as a foundational tool to make yourself a truly well-rounded human being. She noted it's where you figure out how to actually live independently on your own for the very first time. It's where you acquire essential marketing, networking, and vital social skills. She recognized that the immense value of college socialization, the late-night dorm room chats, the navigating of complex peer groups, was a massive sacrifice she had to make. Most profoundly, she understood that while you learn academic lessons inside a classroom, the most valuable things college actually gives you are the life lessons learned entirely outside of it.
Even though she deeply respects the college experience and mentioned she genuinely loved to take classes later in life, she dropped a breathtakingly pragmatic, almost surprisingly dark quote about her reality at that specific time in her career. She told the stream that she simply couldn't just take 4 years off to pursue a degree, because if she did, quote, people will absolutely forget that I ever existed. Let that sink in for a second. There is a brutal pragmatism here. It is a stark, chilling realization of the massive, unforgiving machine of the 2000s music industry. It highlights her intense, almost heavy awareness that fame is deeply conditional and highly, highly fleeting. Keeping her career alive required constant, unyielding, daily presence. She was firmly anchored to the music industry because she understood that stepping away, even for a perfectly valid reason like getting an education, meant totally surrendering the momentum she had worked so desperately, so tirelessly to build. It was all or nothing. And because she knew she couldn't step away for college, she poured every single ounce of her drive, her time, and her unbelievable hustle right back into her career. She wasn't wasting a single second of that momentum. She walked her fans through her fiercely proactive approach to industry collaborations, specifically detailing the making of the song Breathe with Colby Calliot. Now, this absolutely wasn't a case of two massive record labels forcing their artists together in some sterile boardroom for corporate synergy. Not at all. Taylor genuinely loved Colby's album, took the initiative to call Colby's management herself, and literally pleaded for the opportunity to write with her. When she found out Colby had a show coming up in Nashville, Taylor made absolutely sure she had a rare day off, marched right in, pitched her creative idea, and the beautiful collaboration was instantly born. Right after explaining this incredible hustle, she also touched on the track Change, noting it was deeply inspired by her own highly difficult early experiences navigating the intense complexities of being signed to a very small record label before she fully understood how the ruthless music industry actually operates. Now, there is a stark, unavoidable difference between the environment she usually navigates and the one she created for this specific broadcast, and we need to pivot sharply to that contrast right now as we approach the real climax of this explainer. In the modern celebrity world, the red carpet persona is fiercely, fiercely guarded. It involves hundreds of shouting paparazzi, blindingly flashing camera bulbs, nervous publicists hovering just out of frame with a clipboard, and carefully prepared, thoroughly vetted talking points. Every single facial expression is designed for maximum media safety and brand protection. But the live stream persona we've been examining for the last several minutes, it is the exact opposite of that machine. It is deeply, wonderfully authentic. It is completely unguarded. It is literally just a woman sitting comfortably on her sofa, talking about her goofy lopsided dog, her loud family, and her midnight songwriting habits. And it is exactly this specific, unscripted vulnerability that sets the ultimate trap for what happens next. Picture this scenario. The chat box on the side of the screen is flying by at absolute lightning speed. The text is literally blurring past. It's moving so unbelievably fast she's physically struggling to read it. She is locked into a completely mundane, highly professional rhythm, casually talking about small record labels, upcoming tour dates, and songwriting sessions. And then, suddenly, out of nowhere, a viewer in that fast-moving chat brings up Travis Kelce. In a fraction of a second, the entire energy in the room completely shifts. That mundane, professional rhythm is instantly, permanently shattered. It is the ultimate, inescapable collision of her intensely private personal life directly with her public-facing broadcast. She isn't flanked by PR managers to quickly deflect the question or change the subject. She doesn't have a pre-written statement loaded in a teleprompter to safely fall back on. She is live, she is on camera, with absolutely nowhere to hide, and she is forced to react in real time. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that we are going to treat this exact moment like a slow-motion sports replay and micro-analyze her physical reactions step by step, because this sequence is exactly what broke the internet. Step 1. The sudden, striking pause. The exact moment her brain registers the name in the chat, her rapid-fire speaking completely halts. She just freezes. Step 2. The physical, biological reaction begins. Her eyes visibly light up with a very distinct, undeniable sparkle, and her cheeks slightly flush. You can't fake that. Step 3. She experiences a brief, highly visible loss of thought, momentarily breaking eye contact with the camera and looking entirely away from the screen, almost as if she forgot she was broadcasting. And finally, Step 4. The absolute climax of the expression. A soft, quiet, completely uncontainable laugh to herself. This was not the rehearsed, polite, media-trained smile fans are so used to seeing during stiff red carpet interviews. No way. It was an involuntary, full-body micro-expression of pure, unadulterated joy.
But what happens immediately after the smile is honestly just as crucial to the psychology of this moment as the smile itself. As she desperately tried to gather herself and continue speaking, she executed what we can call the unspoken answer. She carefully, expertly avoided giving any direct verbal confirmation to the millions of fans watching. When she briefly looked away from the camera, it seemed to the viewers almost as if she was internally replaying a very private, very happy memory before snapping right back to the reality of the live broadcast. She ensured her verbal response remained respectful, undeniably warm, yet entirely vague. Finally, she took a highly noticeable, incredibly deep breath before fully returning her attention to the audience. But here's the magnificent irony of pop culture, right? Intentional vagueness always leaves a massive vacuum, and fans will always eagerly fill that vacuum. Her desperate attempt to remain graceful, composed, and say absolutely nothing actually fueled the fire. It made fans even more fiercely convinced that something incredibly special and deeply personal was happening behind the scenes.
This single quiet moment triggered an absolute avalanche of online analysis, to the point where even amateur behavioral analysts and body language commentators began heavily weighing in across the entire internet. They flooded comment sections, pointing out the physiological definition of a genuine smile. A genuine smile, often called a Duchenne smile, neurologically involves highly relaxed facial expressions, specifically softened eyes and spontaneous, completely involuntary muscle movement around the whole face. It is biologically and neurologically totally distinct from a posed, polite media smile, which usually only engages the mouth. Commentators were incredibly quick to point out that she looked the happiest she had been in years, and they fiercely argued that because she was in this highly natural, completely unscripted domestic atmosphere we established earlier, this specific biological reaction was virtually impossible for anyone, even a highly seasoned, world-class performer, to fake on command.
And the scale of the reaction? It was absolutely staggering. We aren't talking about a few thousands of views here, folks. We are talking about millions upon millions of interactions. In a matter of mere hours, the quantifiable impact of this tiny, seconds-long micro-expression exploded across the entire digital landscape. The cascading effects were truly dramatic. Clips of this specific few seconds were violently stripped from the larger live stream and began spreading like absolute wildfire. The social media algorithms heavily prioritized it, pushing it to the absolute top of feeds across TikTok, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Late-night hosts scrambled to write monologue jokes about it before their tape times. Thousands upon thousands of viewers were replaying those few seconds on a continuous loop, analyzing every single pixel of her reaction. Fan edits were being created by the minute, reaction videos absolutely flooded the timeline, and major entertainment pages raced to pick up the story. The sheer volume of cultural noise generated from one silent, fleeting laugh was unprecedented, with searches related to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce surging massively across all platforms as the entire world desperately tried to find the full context of the clip. Let's move to and see how this builds, because what is truly fascinating isn't just the sheer mathematical virality of the moment, it's the profound consensus of the fan community itself. The reaction wasn't just cheap gossip or invasive, toxic probing. It was overwhelmingly supportive and highly protective. Longtime fans, the dedicated Swifties who have followed her through thick and thin for years, rushed to the comment sections not just to spin wild theories, but to actively protect her peace. One fan's comment truly encapsulated the prevailing mood of the entire internet. "We don't need a relationship announcement. That smile told us enough." The fans genuinely respected her graceful boundary setting. They didn't aggressively demand a massive press release, a glossy magazine cover shoot, or a dramatic, tearful confession. They prioritized simply seeing her look so remarkably relaxed, deeply comfortable, and undeniably happy. They viewed this tiny, unguarded moment as the beautiful beginning of a new chapter for her, and they were deeply content with the unspoken truth her face had already revealed. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and it leaves us with a truly provocative question to deeply ponder as we wrap up. In today's hyper-modern entertainment world, celebrities deploy massive teams and spend literally millions of dollars to carefully control every single public appearance, every written statement, every polished photograph. Yet despite all of that incredibly expensive, heavy machinery, why do our biggest cultural headlines now come from our quietest, most completely unscripted moments? Think about it. Taylor Swift didn't need a massive PR campaign, a dramatic sit-down television interview, or a shocking reveal to totally dominate the global conversation. She just sat on her couch, let her guard completely down, and offered the world one genuine, irrepressible smile. It completely stole the spotlight from absolutely everything else going on in the world. In an age of artificial intelligence, algorithms, and hyper-production, it forces us to realize that raw human authenticity is perhaps the rarest, most powerful commodity we have left in a heavily manufactured world. Thank you so much for learning with me today. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you in the next explainer.